Sure. My name is Khadija. I currently lead product expansion at Paystack. I've done that for about 2+ years now. And I think I've spent the last 15 years, I like to say, just building payments infrastructure across the continent. I started out my career purely coincidentally in a payments company where I had just finished school. I had an electrical engineering degree ready to take over the world. But then I was in this period where I was just in limbo at home, waiting to join my set at NYSC. And I needed a holiday job, if that makes sense. So I had put the word out, and a friend of mine had her sister in the company at the time. I was like, oh yeah, sure, coming for a chat. And I had no idea, like I had no idea what the company even did. So I was like, wait, what does she do again? What does this mean? Bear in mind at the time, there were no ATMs in Nigeria, right? Like there were no cards. There was nothing like electronic payments. Everybody used to go to the bank to get cash, and then you would use cash to pay for what you wanted. So I joined the company as a customer support officer, basically attending to customer complaints because people are like, what is a card? Like, what is my PIN? Did that for a bit. Also went into operations, which was just running the day-to-day things like dispute management. Something's broken, you figure out why, and then you like work with the tech team to fix it. And then I went on to do many different things. I did a stint as a developer support person. I worked as a quality assurance officer. I did technical sales. And then I remember at some point, my manager at the time had been reading a lot about this discipline called product management. And apparently I was a good candidate for the role. Again, like I had no idea what product management even was. To me, it was like one more experiment, coming from like 6 odd different roles in the same company. So I went in there, and of course, like nobody had any idea what it was. I remember like different people would have different challenges, and they would come to us and say, this thing is not working. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, hey, fix it now. Are you not the product manager? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I remember we had this email trail going around, and the subject was what a product manager is not. And we're literally trying to educate everybody on like, guys, like if your laptop is not working, don't bring it to the product manager. I'm exaggerating, but it was that ridiculous at the time. And I think I spent the first full year literally just trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing and how I could add value. You would read about like all these amazing things people in companies in like Facebook and Google were doing. And I'd look at my reality and be like, yeah, I can't try this here. Like, obviously not. Like strategy setting didn't have to start with a product manager. You didn't manage a P&L. You didn't have control over any resources. So it was quite the journey coming to terms with what was feasible and what the optimal discipline could look like. And we started running some small experiments. The biggest thing was just delivering on value that the company could appreciate. So you did this, like nobody really knew what you were doing, but you'd come out and say, oh, we've done this and this is the result. And it's like, oh, okay. And little by little, people started paying attention. People started building trust. You started building your own street credibility. Like, I can make things happen. And after some time, I think we started getting some respect. The role became a real thing. We had more people on the team. And then I just went on to do that for the rest of my time there. And I've kind of been in that space between then and now in multiple different capacities. Yeah.
Cool. Hi, my name is Roger Norton. I am a chief product officer at a startup called OK Hi. Before that, I was head of product at Founders Factory Africa, which is a venture builder, and have a long career of working in typically building very early stage products, early stage businesses in startup studios, venture builders, running startups, working in startups, consulting to startups. So a lot of like when you talk about the hats of PM or the different specializations, I'm very much a 0 to 1, an innovation product manager, building and shipping new products, working out what and how to build new things. I think there's a lot of value in getting it to that point, getting it to the growth and beyond the growth, finding product market fit. So very driven by those sort of early stages. So a lot of my advice is based around that uncertainty and embracing that uncertainty of those early stages. But that's certainly not. There's a lot of value also further down the value chain around like optimization and growth PMs and stabilizing and moving into systems. But yeah, I've done a lot of a crossover between working with founders and startups. And so for me, building new products and building new businesses are very intertwined. And how you deliver value and capture value, create and capture value, are intrinsically inclined. And a startup is just a vehicle that, for me, epitomizes that the best. But ultimately, it's a product and it's shipping value. So, what do you look for in somebody when you're looking at recruiting someone? And maybe let's do this by level. I think that's always an interesting thing, because looking for a junior PM, what you look for in a junior PM versus a mid-level PM or a senior PM is often quite different. So, what are the elements that you think are most important? Just one or two key things that have to be there in that at those different levels. I mean, what would you look for?
I think actually, just a caveat. I don't think there are, how do I frame this now? Like, I don't think I would answer the question in the context of like the three different levels. That's like going into a competency framework discussion. I don't think we want to get into. But I can talk about, like, skills that hold true regardless of your level, I guess.
Cool.
And then,
so it's like what good PMs have in common, basically, and
or like what I look out for when trying to hire good PMs or good people overall.
Yeah. So what is that? Yeah, I'm gonna take notes.
Yeah. So I guess I would say, like, when trying to hire great PMs or just great people overall, there are a number of skills that are consistent regardless. I think the first one, this is like a big bucket, but I'll just say functional skills. So depending on the role that you're in, depending on the level you're hiring for, there's a certain extent that you want people to be able to hit the ground running. And that's where functional skills come into play. But if it's an early role, then you can always like accommodate time to teach or train the person in those skills. But again, that's just putting that out there, because if you want like a senior person, obviously you want somebody that already knows the work and can get started and support team members. But other than that, I think the first one is creative problem solving. And I know this sounds like a caveat, but there are problems that you haven't faced before, and you need somebody that can be creative in how to navigate it. Again, in a world where you are almost never going to have enough resources, whether with your developers or designers or user researchers or etc. You're going to have to wear multiple hats. So you're definitely going to have to be creative, both with resourcing and with like the ideation process. What's the best way to solve this problem? Knowing what we have in our hand and knowing the customer's timeline as well. That's one underrated skill. I think the second one, which again is underrated, is excellent communication. I don't know how much we realize that product management is negotiation for the most part. You are negotiating with your customers, you are negotiating with your stakeholders, you are negotiating with your teams. You need to have a certain level of charisma to be able to influence people, to be able to set a vision and convince people to come along with you on this journey. Like, it's almost like being, okay, I was going to say politician, but no, I think politics is a delicate topic.
There's definitely some elements of being good at politic, should I say? It's probably a good way of saying it. Not being a politician, not being shallow, but having, yeah.
Exactly. I would couch it as having excellent communication skills, having really, really great negotiation skills, having some level of charisma, just so you can win people around to your way of thinking, whether it's external customers or stakeholders or team members even. And I think the third one is just like people that have a bias for execution. I touched on this earlier when I was just talking about grit and diligence and hard work. Like when people are tired, you're the one that has to keep going. When everybody is like about to give up, you're the one that has to have the ginger to say, guys, let's do, maybe we can go to bed, but when we wake up tomorrow, like with fresh eyes, I think we can do this. So yeah, that's my list. On one hand is like the functional skill in terms of the level you want, just map them to the kind of expertise you expect them to have. But excellent communication, a bias for execution, and creative problem solving, I think, remain true regardless of what level you're hiring for. Yeah. I have one question for you, Roger, before we go. I feel like you've been asking me all the questions. Just some, I guess, tips you can leave with the audience, just if you're thinking about product folks or just people looking to build successful careers in the world as we know it today. Just anything, any helpful anecdotes you can offer for people to think through before we go?
Yeah, I think the one reflection for me, and I mean, I'm coming from a point of like, I'm a university dropout, my highest qualifications are high school. I ended up working on yachts for a bit, and I've been at startups, and I've ran a studio, and I've been in and out and doing, like, careers are built in hindsight, not foresight. Like, product didn't, like, where I've ended up wasn't a target to aim for 10, 15 years ago. Like that, it just, there wasn't a career. And I see this a lot as well. I mean, I'm from back in the day, my wife actually studied BA and in drama, and she specialized in drama. And when she finished university, there were really many jobs in like drama and acting. And it was right around the time when social media was taking off, and they needed people to actually be able to craft narratives and write content strategies. And the BA students and the people who'd studied writing and studied drama were the best for, and all of your what you'll find now, like most social media experts sort of over the last 5-10 years have all come from creative, artistic, like drama type backgrounds that weren't in there. And so I think the technology is changing so quickly, and the way in which we're building like software, and now with AI coming out, like the most useful degree moving forward might be a sociology degree on like how do we interact with computers and how do we interact with the software. And I think it's so hard to predict how things are moving. And when people are looking at building their career, so often they look at what roles are available today, and then what is the path I need to get on to get to that point. And I think that's kind of missing the point. Like that's the rat race from like working in big corporates. That's how the world used to work. I don't actually think it works like that anymore. I think it's more around following what's interesting, following what you're genuinely interested in, finding ways in which to add value by doing that. And as you look back on your career, like as Steve Jobs says, that the dots are joined in hindsight. And it's often not that predictable about how to get there. So I think a lot of people are very worried about this career path, and they try and map this ladder and try and move along that. But the best advice I have for people coming into their career is just do what's genuinely interesting and what's available. And like building these unique career paths ends you in a very unique place where, as the world shifts, you might be uniquely positioned in order to actually add value in that space. So I think we're getting past the point where you can overthink career paths and where you're going, and people just follow what they're interested in. And like you can do an entire thing by just streaming computer games nowadays. Like that totally did not exist back in my day. And I think the world is changing so much that we just need to do what, like more and more people need to do what you're genuinely interested in reflecting on where your skills are at, reflecting on where your skills lie, and not trying to over-engineer a career. I think the unique, interesting careers that develop over time are just people following stuff that they like. That's typically where I think most young people go wrong these days, getting too structured.
How do you pay your bills while you're doing what you like, pending when you figure out how to, pending when
so I don't mean like just doing only what you love. Like go and find roles and go and work out what it is, but not overly working on like, well, where does this job lead to? And like do what you need to do to pay the bills now, and keep moving towards spaces where you can get alignment between what you love and what you're good at. and keep reflecting on why am I good at it? What do I enjoy about what gives me energy about this role? What doesn't give me energy? How do I do more of those things that give me energy? Who will pay me to do more of those types of things? So totally not saying just follow your passion and forget about salaries. But I'm also saying, like, don't just work the mindless job because this is the career path you need to work on. Like, I think there's a lot of nuance and richness in like finding ways to get paid for the stuff that you're good at or the stuff that you love and you're naturally inclined towards is going to build a far more interesting and rewarding career than just following a path.
Exactly. That's really cool. And yeah, I was putting that out there because I feel like there are certain realities that we also need to acknowledge in trying to navigate the best career paths for ourselves. And yeah, I do like definitely +1 on what you were saying about the way the world is now. The most important things to me feel like just staying curious and adaptable, so that you can get in on whatever is happening, in a way where at least you are informed, and at best you build expertise there. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.